Hi everybody, I'm Louise, the curator at BOM. My pronouns are she and her. I am a smiley white woman with pink glasses and a brown bob with micro fringe. And I am here with Suriya. So hi Suriya.
Hey everyone, my name's Suriya. My pronouns are she and her. I'm a Black woman with medium long length locks, and I wear glasses. And at the moment, I've got my silver glasses on, I think.
Great. Thank you for that. So Suriya, we've come here to talk about neurodivergence and digital specifically. So, but the first question that I'd like to ask you is, what does being neurodivergent mean to you?
Yeah, I really like this question about what neurodivergent means to me, because for me, it's been a journey of accepting how I might describe the way that I interact in the world, and where that stems from. So I have an illness, so I have a chronic condition which affects my brain. So it's like a physical condition which affects the way that my brain thinks and works, and my energy and my focus. So I think the reason why I say that it's been a journey was because I guess sometimes when we think about neurodivergence, we might automatically think about what might have been classified before as specific learning disabilities or specific learning differences like dyslexia or ADHD. But I think at the moment there's been a growth and an expansion of what neurodiversity means. And I think it's a lot of it is a self-identifying characteristic. And because of that, also because there's a community that's grown around it, and a connection online specifically and in person, where people understand that your brain processes things differently to the dominant way that we've learned people process information and experiences. So that's what it means to me, is that in majority of spaces, I'm going to probably need some sort of different way of doing things than a lot of people do.
And can I ask how have you become able to make sure that you can do that and you can feel, because it's I imagine it's a journey to get to the point where you feel confident enough to sort of say, right, this is what I need, and this is what you need to do to work with me, essentially.
Yeah, that's it's a really big thing to kind of to deal with, you know what I mean, to especially as a person who is neurodiverse or neurodivergent. It's a lot of it is about, it stems down to ableism. Really, we have grown up in an ableist society and culture which adopts the medical model of disability, which is about you are broken, there is something wrong with you, and you need to be fixed or changed in order to fit in with the world that currently exists. And learning more about things like the social model of disability, which is about no, a person in themselves is not broken or there's nothing wrong with anybody. It's the fact that we need to adapt the world around us to accommodate lots of different types of people. And so I think that wider acceptance of the social model is only really happened as I got into my early 20s, maybe. I think that's the first time I even really heard about it or saw it happen in practice. So, and even then, I think it's only really been in the last 5 years, and I'm 29, that I've really felt, hang on a second, there's nothing wrong with me. I deserve to have a space in this world. And like, you know, why should I be left out? Why should I not be able to do anything? Specifically at university, I experienced that because there is a myth that people who are neurodivergent are less intelligent or less able to do things. And a lot of the time when you remove particular barriers, you realize that they have the same level of whatever intelligence is that you might classify it on. Say, for example, we're talking about university, we're talking about academic intelligence. So for me, for example, I, because I'm registered as partially sighted, struggled with reading long pieces of text and struggled with organizing my time in terms of doing assignments. And so I was not functioning, that's a word I don't want to use. I was performing at a 2-2 level at university. So what people could see of me was that my academic attainment was that level. Mm-hmm. And when I had certain support put in place, which weren't anything to do with my intelligence, it was like a screen reader and somebody to help me organize my time, my actual intelligence in relation to the subject literally jumped to a first class level of like writing, and because the actual content and my opinions and my attainment wasn't the issue, it was the ways in which I accessed the information. And so I think that is a big challenge for neurodivergent people in terms of accepting that they need to say about their needs, because they've internalized the idea that there's something wrong with them. Mm-hmm. And there's no other marker to tell you that there isn't. You know, if you're at school and you're dyslexic and you're getting low grades and no one's saying to you, hang on a sec, let's get these cover papers to put over your words, and suddenly you can read it and you can do it. How would you know that as a child, as a young person? You're just going to think that something wrong with you. So you're not going to ask for needs because you think that you're being too much, or you think that you've just got to work a bit harder. So when I overcame that ideology, it allowed me to go, I have to remind myself even now, like, there's literally nothing wrong with me. It's just that I need different things.
There's so many levels of that as well, though, because I feel like as a female, or female presenting or identifying, there's lots of there's layers within that of like, you have to work harder, and being able to take up your space is like a radical act. And as a person of color as well, there's another level where you have to work harder. So it's it feels like brave is a bit of a, not a word I want to be like, you're brave, but that it's a radical act, really. And at such a young age as well, I feel like that is amazing that you've got. And I feel like through doing these episodes that we've done, I've met so many people who have just been like, no, this is like, you've just stopped. This is how you need to be to work with me. And even just that action in meeting someone, from my point of view as a curator, as a producer in a cultural organisation, someone's just saying, well, here you go, this is me, if you want to work with me, this is what you have to do. And I'm like, oh okay. And just thinking about that and stopping and going, oh okay, and just the acceptance of that and going, actually, I need to work a bit harder. That's going to cause me to work harder. So at first you think, oh God, to be completely honest, you think, oh, I've got to do that. I've got to change the way I work because that person works differently. But the more that you do it and the more you're presented with it, the more normal and it is now that with everybody that I work with, I have to sort of go, no, you have to ask how they want to, because I want you to do something for me.
Yeah.
So you have, like, I have to.
And I think it's kind of like, we accept that people have different styles. We accept that people have different tasting food. We accept that people live in different places and do different things. But when it comes to work, we have one way of doing it. And so I think if for organizations, it's like not even assuming that what you're going to do is going to be way A. Like, you've got to like come to the table being like, let's see what way this person might present to us. And actually, as we work with more people, we've expanded our ways of doing things to like A to D, for example. So we can put them on the table and say, we can work like this, we can work like this, we can work like this, and we can work like this. But I think that's what most organizations are growing into, to be like, what way would you like to pick from? And I think the thing that you said about kind of the intersectionality of particular like oppressions or challenges, I think especially for Black young people, and then obviously again on top of that, Black women. And I talk about young people because I think that's when it can be really pivotal for if you're working with, because I think Black young people would come into a space like BOM and already think that, oh, I've got to prove myself, because people have all these assumptions about Black young people in STEM and Black young people in arts and science and all these different things. So I've got to like be like really like more, do you know what I mean? And then so then to ask and say, actually, I'm neurodiverse as well, so I need X, Y, Z, it's less likely that, though you'll probably see a difference in terms of white young people will probably more able to say, this is what I need and whatever. And Black young people are more, it's more of a thing of like, we've been taught by our parents to kind of not really draw too much attention to ourselves in a negative way. So if disability is seen as a negative by ableism, it's like you just deal with that privately and then you just put your best foot forward. And so I think that what we have as responsibility is like, as curators, as producers, as facilitators, is to say on the outset, to really affirm with young people, it's like, whatever, if you need something, like, we can have a chat about that. Or if you've got, if we don't have that, because I'm thinking about someone at my university who, because I had such a unique condition, you know, it's very unique, nobody knows about it. So they had lots of plans of action for people who were dyslexic. They had lots of plans of action for people who were blind solely. They had lots of plans of action for certain other conditions, autistic, etc. But when I came, I was like a whole different kettle of fish with lots of different things going on. And I remember my access person said, she said to me, and because I was a very like shy, but like low confidence, and in that mindset of like, okay, I'll just change and make myself small. And she was like, if it's not in place so far, it needs to be in place because you're here at this university. So that's the end of the fact, isn't it? So what we're going to do is I'm going to fight and make sure that we advocate for your access, because we can't, it wasn't even a question. She was like, how can we say that it's not needed if you're sitting right in front of me? Do you know what I mean? Your needs, we've got to curate something unique for you. We've got to make that happen because you're here. Do you know what I mean? And I think her fighting so far, and at any point when I used to start doubting and say, oh no, it's okay, I won't have that and I won't have this, she would be like, no, take it, or take what you need, take more than you need, so that you're not struggling. And then if you don't use all of it, no one's going to come and say, oops, Suriya, you only used 25% extra time instead of 50. Do you know what I mean? It's like, she was like, just take as much as you need to make sure that you're comfortable doing the degree. And I feel like that really set the precedent of me being like, I don't have to apologize for having needs. And I feel like she was really pivotal in my experience. So I try and affirm that as much as when I work with young people, to say, your needs are not a burden. They're just what you need to do what you're doing.
Yeah, and the arts is like really well set up, especially in the smaller organisations. I feel really lucky at BOM that there's 5, 6 of us, maybe 7 now. But like, so we can go, oh, actually, this isn't working, we need to change this. And it happens within like 2 days.
Yeah.
And I was at a large organisation before BOM, not a huge one, but a larger one. And it was even it was harder in there, because it's just, you know, as organisations get bigger, processes get longer, bureaucracies start to appear, and hoops have to be jumped through. But every day I feel like really glad that I can just go to the director and be like, this hasn't worked for this person.
Yeah,
we need to change this, or we need to be doing this. And then it's like, okay, well, let's see what we can do. But there's also the there's people in there with ideas and stuff about how we can do things, because there's different ways of doing things, you know what I mean? There's not always, you don't have to outsource everything, you don't have to, you can do things in-house, like just little things like adding different ways to apply for things to your job advertisement. I mean, it's literally not hard. We've done it, and it doesn't, I think people think that it's going to change the fairness of the application, but it doesn't really. Like, you just need to give people the way, the platform that suits them to express themselves, I think.
But and I think also there's all this stuff about coming in a little bit more now, isn't it? Sense of recruitment should never be a test of what, you know, it's not even, it doesn't work well for the one who's recruiting or for the person who's being recruited to test someone. You genuinely do just want to see who they are and what they're about and what experience they have to bring to the role or to the opportunity. Because people, what happens then, which is one of the things that, you know, causes so much inequality, is that if you are testing people, then those who have access to practice that test are going to excel more than those who don't have access to practice that test. But actually, if you just ask people to come as they are, you'll probably see more of the reality of who those people are.
Yeah.
And sometimes the person who might have not been able to perform well on the test is actually the person who is the best person for the role.
I remember someone saying to me, not that long ago, like, you're interviewing them as well.
Yeah.
And I was like, what? What? And they were, and it blew my mind. It literally blew my mind, because I was always had that, no, like, you need to be the best thing ever. Like, they're looking for you. Like, I never thought about them. I was always like, I need to please them. And when they said that, I was like, of course, because like, this is potentially the place I'm going to spend like 8 hours a day, 5 days a week. So I need to work out whether they're the right fit for me as well. And that really changed the way that I approached things, because I'd always been like, oh, give me a job. And so that, I think that's something that's really important to tell, not just young people, but people generally, like, this is a fit, this is a jigsaw. Like, it's not just you need to fit into them, they need to fit you as well.
Yeah, and your organization should shift and change whenever a new person joins it, because if you're not shifting and changing every time a new person joins it, that means you're just hiring the same person over and over again.
Yeah. And I think that's where people find things difficult. That's where the stuff happens, where excuse my language, the shit hits the fan, because people join and then stuff goes wrong, and the organization, I've seen it time and time again on Twitter, like, the organizations, they can't change, they can't shift, so that person gets like what's the word, like, something bad happens and they can't move with them, and it really is can be really detrimental, can't it, to life, because life happens while you're working. Like, do you know what I mean? Like, stuff happens to you, and organizations need to, like, bigger organizations, like massive conglomerates and stuff, they can't deal with that. They'll just be like, you need to be this robot that turns up at work, and then mental health isn't really looked after. And that's why we're in a mental health crisis, but like, that's one of the reasons. Whereas in the arts, if you're asking people to come and as themselves and be themselves and like give their creativity and their, like, it's so personal, isn't it, what we do, that you have to also say, well, with that, you're bringing your neurodivergence, you're bringing your mental health and all of that. I really believe in that. And the organization has to be flexible enough to be able to deal with that and support that, I think.
Yeah, and I think the thing is that what's really annoying about, and what makes sometimes disabled neurodivergent people feel so on edge, is that it's this ideology that everybody doesn't have needs. Do you know what I mean? I think what happens is that those who are neurotypical or able-bodied have shrunk themselves as well to fit into an organization. So it's like, your organization shouldn't just be flexible for those who have additional needs. It should be flexible anyway. Do you know what I mean? It's like, it's like, especially in the arts, it's like, why, so I always say to people, sometimes in the arts, it's like some of the least creative places that I've ever worked. Do you know what I mean? Because there's no innovation and there's no imagination. It's just kind of like, we are going to do it how everybody's done it, and we're not going to budge from it. And it's like, aren't we a creative organization? Like, having neurodivergent disabled people in your organization creates an amazing opportunity for constant innovation and imagination, to think wider and outside the box, and different types of people and different sensory experiences and all these different things that benefit everyone, not just, and it has a creative benefit. It's not like, oh, this is gonna like make it harder for us. It's gonna make it more exciting and wider.
It's the fear, isn't it? It is the fear. As humans, like, we're just scared of everything, and we've been there at BOM. Like, I've been through so many situations where I've messed it up. Like, I've worked with new people we haven't worked with before, and it's gone horribly wrong. We haven't done it. We've done something wrong or whatever, and it's horrible. Like, gut-wrenching thing of like, oh my god, I've made this person have 3 days of panic attacks because I sent that email or whatever, and it's horrible. But I've done that. It sounds awful. I've done that so many times now that it's I'm sort of used to it, because we have to go through that threshold of oh God, I did that wrong, but then
making
I'm
mistakes.
changing it to learn better. So I think, but I can see why people are terrified of that, but you just have to, I remember where I previously worked at Fact in Liverpool, they did this radical thing where they took all of the staff from like finance, marketing, creative, everybody went to, it was a bit of a weird thing, but we went to this this like day centre where people with physical disabilities were there basically, and a lot of them were non-verbal and you know, couldn't move very well, and we did like an arts workshop and people were freaking out. Like everybody was, all of the staff were just terrified, literally terrified of going in there. It caused so much trouble, but I could totally see why they were doing it, because they were like, well, we need, if we want to be inviting people in, and lots of different people, then you need to get used to this. Like you need to get used to, get over this fear of disabled people essentially. And it was actually really, it was amazing, and I was scared, I was really scared, but afterwards we, you know, everyone was like, oh, actually that wasn't, they're just people. So that was quite a radical thing. It was a bit odd because we don't know how those people felt about us coming in.
Yeah, it sounds a bit of like an imbalance of power. Do you know what I mean? Because I think it's that strange thing of like disabled people being taught, used as a teaching pole as able-bodied people to like open their minds. But at the same point, from that point, I do think that like one of the things that I'm saying to a lot of people about all forms of inclusion, you know, or whatever we're going to call it, but you know, about race, about disability, about gender and sexuality and everything. It's like, how much are you listening, watching, filling your life with different types of information? Not everything you do has to be on Twitter, on Instagram, or on a big training session. You can just go onto Netflix and like watch a documentary. You can and you can sit with the feelings that you know, there's Crip Camp at the moment on Netflix, and you can watch that and you can sit with the feelings that you feel, that fear, that confusion, that questioning yourself, that having a conversation with your friend about it, you know. And those things can be worked out also in private, away from people. That doesn't always cause harm on others. And also, and then you are constantly learning, you're constantly thinking, you know, because there's one time I worked at an organization and they were like working with young people and they didn't know what Snapchat was. And I found it really offensive because I was like, you can't, you have to have an awareness of the world that you're trying to engage people from or in. Like, do you know what I mean? It's like, I work with young people, so I'm on TikTok all the time. Do you know what I mean? I'm thinking about what are young people saying? What are they like interested in? All this kind of stuff. I know I'm not a young person anymore, but if I don't even know their world, how can I have the audacity to come and say what I think they need? And then, so I think it's also that thing of how much are you actually engaged with disabled artists, or thinking about, and not just using them for like, you know, there's one thing like following people on Twitter, but also there is a sense of asking your neurodivergent friend what neurodivergence is. But how many, I can, you know, that you'd be so surprised how many people have actually Googled neurodivergency or looked at the hashtag on Instagram. Do you know what I mean? Like, you can do these things in your own time. Yeah. You can learn, like, so many people have put these things out there for you to go, hang on a second, I don't really know much about that. So let me just quickly look for a couple of things. And I think that would always be my starting point with an organization before, because obviously I get asked to come and do like training and things like that. And it's like, okay, but before I come, you have to have read or watched at least something. So you can come with a sense of understanding of even the 101, because I think there's a sense of entitlement that we all have in this kind of age of information where it's like, teach me, tell me. And it's like, and it's like the, I don't know if you read the Judith Butler article that she wrote, kind of challenging JK Rowling's like anti-trans stuff. But it's really, I thought it was really powerful on lots of levels. And she said something about how she described it as we're in the age of anti-intellectualism, where we just want everything in a tweet, we want everything in the Instagram, we want everything in a thing, and we have to re-find our love for long form and for slow, deep learning. Like, you're not going to go to one training and suddenly know everything about everything, and you're not gonna, and beating yourself up about that is also unhelpful. Do you know what I mean? Whereas if you can say to yourself, I know that I need to learn more about these things, so I'm going to watch this and I'm going to do that, and not for a sense of to flag my banner of like, look everybody, look what I'm doing, but genuinely because I don't know much about these people's worlds, and I want to understand more about it and have a genuine understanding, because I think that's what a lot of disabled or neurodivergent people feel, is like, you haven't even done the basic Googling. Do you know what I mean? I can tell. Do you know what I mean? So,
and I think this is something we were talking about on the phone, wasn't it? It's that that thing about care. It's like, and this is what I keep coming back to whenever I'm having any of these conversations for this series, is that it's getting people in your organization, however you do, well, you should do that responsibly and authentically, and like, you know what I mean? But so we've been able to, we just naturally have a lot of, we don't really know why, a lot of autistic audiences and creative practitioners. So we got onto that and we thought, right, okay, well, how can we support them? So we started talking to them, blah, blah, blah. Anyway, that's not what I'm talking about. What I'm saying is, like, getting those people in has given me more information and more experience than doing it. I've done quite a few training days of like how to work with people. All of the stuff about autism that I've ever done, and I'm talking specifically about autism, is been really white focused. It's that whole narrative about the little white boy, you know, sort of the dog in the nighttime vibe of like Rain Man sort of thing, which is just so not representative of the broad spectrum of people. And then also, it's also very like, it's always focused on like what physical, like actual things. But the thing that we talked about on the phone was like, well, but if you don't care about that person, you're not gonna, like, why would you not really gonna do that? And you know, I really care, I think, about people, and I've seen firsthand, horribly, which isn't very nice, but I've seen firsthand what not sending something at the right time or presuming someone knows something can do to that other person. Do you know what I mean? So, and I don't want to see that again. And, and I'm not saying, right, get someone who's neurodivergent in your organisation, do really bad stuff to them so that they're really upset, and then you learn your lesson. But I don't know what I'm saying. I'm just saying that.
No, I understand. It's about you. When you're in relationship with people, it helps you learn on a deeper level what the actual real-time impact is, isn't it, in terms of these things. Whereas I think sometimes when they're in isolation, you're kind of disconnected from it, and that's the, you know, I feel very removed from the rhetoric of diversity, because I think it's just very basic, like get lots of people in the room. But what diversity can do is, if you genuinely are creating not just a diverse but an equitable environment where everybody in that room has an equal stake in the way the culture is formed, you're genuinely going to know, if, because you're around lots of different people, you're going to be like, oh, I get, like, we need to like make sure all these people are involved because I care about these people. Whereas if you're in a room with like able-bodied white people, like, or white men a lot of the time, which is what the arts is, obviously things are going to come out looking a particular way because you're not even aware, or you're not, and it's something interesting that I don't know if you've read or listened to Brene Brown.
Yes.
Brene Brown stuff, the Power of Vulnerability.
Yeah.
So for the Power of Vulnerability, I think she talks about the kind of the levels of empathy and how empathy has to be developed. And she says a really interesting thing about how a lot of people from the dominant narrative, so that's white male cis or white cis women or whatever, there is a difference in the type of empathy that has been developed, because being empathetic as a person of color is a survival tactic. So from the beginning of my life, I've learned how white culture works and all these different things because I've had to assimilate into it and learn how to survive in it. If you're living in a society that everything is designed for you. There's a basic actual like thing we have to accept, is that empathy levels are different. So it's actually empathy. What the thing is that I learned from Brene was like, empathy is not going to come naturally for you. Not white people, just for most people, any people. Empathy is not the default response. Our default response a lot of the time is frustration, annoyance, like, do you know what I mean? And actually to step into the mode of, okay, I'm not autistic, or I'm not, but actually let me go to the empathetic part before I even go to any of the access, and go, what must it be like for you to walk into a space where you're in physical pain because of these sensory things, or you cannot understand what someone's saying because of the way that they're communicating it or whatever. How does that feel? And all these different things. And then that empathy allows you to have deeper ways of actually adapting the work, rather than what she, I think, refers to as like this scarcity mindset of like, shit, I'm gonna get told off, so I better just do it, and so that this person doesn't tell me off, or I don't get called out on Twitter, which is a lot of where we're at, isn't it, with this access. It's like, oh, we got to make sure we say the right thing in the Black Lives Matter square so nobody calls us out. And actually that doesn't make me change, does it? Because you can tell, like you said, nobody has empathy or cares really. And that's the thing that, like, I think what I've learned recently is that you can't disconnect with this diversity and inclusion and anti-racism and anti-ableism and all this stuff. If you don't talk about vulnerability, empathy and fear and scarcity, like, you won't ever really move forward in a deep way, because you have to have people honestly in meetings saying, well, I'm scared of what might happen if we do it this way. Do you know what I mean? And then when you've got a space where people can honestly say that, you can then move forward, because you can talk about the fear. Whereas I think we pretend like we're not scared, and actually everyone's really scared. Like, it's like, oh, I don't know what this means. Are we going to lose our funding? Are we going to, you know what I mean? It's like.
And do you know what that's made me think of, which is really boring, but time is really important in terms of like what COVID has shown me is like time and pressure. The pressure of time is really negative, has negative effects on particularly working with neurodivergent, disabled, basically non, like, whoever, like, well, just everybody, like, because sorry, I'm not like articulating this very well, but what COVID is sort of like at points has taken the pressure off stuff, and it sort of made, it elongated some time frames for me and for BOM. Oh my God, it was so much easier. It's so much easier to work with people, because, you know, like, if someone says, oh, I can't do that today, or I don't have the energy, and like, or whatever, I'm like, yeah, fine, that's fine, let's do it another time. Whereas before it was always just like, go. And I think we need to have more time, because it just makes everything better. And like, for me, it makes it better. But that comes from above as well. So that's coming from funding deadlines and like deliverables and KPIs. And I think that there's a balance between being flexible from the funders, but also changing the way that we apply for funding, in terms of saying, well, actually, whoever, Arts Council England, whoever, I'm going to give you this timeline, but actually I'm going to say to you also that this is going to be flexible, because we need to make sure that it's authentic and that it's care, you know, we've got a sense of care in there. And taking the level of responsibility that you guys are taking on yourselves to say, well, this is what I need. We need to do that as well as organisations. We need to go above us and take that learning up, because they're not going to do it. So if we start asking for it and saying that we need it, and our artists and our practitioners need it, then I'm sure actually a lot of them would go, all right, yeah, sound. That's, do you know what I mean?
This is it. I think that's a really good point, actually, the advocacy on that level, to be like, if you want, you know, because obviously Arts Council are also like, tell us that you're working with lots of different types of people and blah, 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 blah. And it's like, okay, well, the reality of working with disabled people means that we might do it in this way, or the outcomes might be different, or do you know what I mean? I think there's I think also what happens in the arts is like everything is on urgent level 100 all the time. Everything is prioritized on the same level, which I always find really difficult, because it's like this part of the project is like needs urgent, and this part of the project it's like not everything is urgent. There are some things that like, and I think that's one of the issues that I find of like, we have to start scattering things, like of being like, if this doesn't get done, what's the actual impact of it? Whereas I think that there is a sense in the arts, for whatever reason, maybe it is the funding bodies or whatever, that everything that doesn't get done is really detrimental. And I think that has a massive effect on, because I think with what happens with neurodivergent people and disabled people is that we're constantly bartering or having to reprioritize our life, because it's like, you know, energy levels. So we can see sometimes, often with projects, it's like, okay, but if I was assessing that for myself, I would never have said that that was an urgent thing. So I can see that I've got priorities in my life that I'm prioritizing. And what happens often with organizations is that everything is on level super because of stress levels, because of whatever. We can kind of explain why all these things are the way they are. It's like, it's not like there isn't a lack of understanding, but I think there is a sense of stepping back, isn't there, sometimes, to just be like, hang on a second, is this as important, as urgent as it feels for me right now, or is this me projecting my stress onto this person and my anxiety onto this person?
I remember excuse me, someone said to me, one of my colleagues said to me once, oh, you've got such good work-life balance, and I took it as an insult. Honestly, I was like, she's reading me. Like, I was like, that is not cool. And they were like, you know, I just don't have that. And I totally took it as like, right, so you're really productive. You're like, and I was like, and it took me ages. And I was like, why is that bad? Like, actually, I should be really proud about that, because I need to take care of myself, and I'm totally at that point now. But I mean, I've been at BOM for 5 years. Before that, I was working for 8 years in a similar larger organization. I'm 35 years old. How has it taken me that long to go, do you know what? I don't fancy having a breakdown this year. I think
why is that the goal? I just feel so annoyed.
Yeah, exactly. And it's like, and at BOM, to be completely honest with you, like, over the last 3 years, there's been a couple of members of staff, me included, where we've lost so much productivity because we've been signed off, because we've had like essentially breakdowns. So, you know, that's when, and I don't want this to happen to people, but sometimes I think you do have to get to that point for people to go, hang on a minute, this isn't working.
Yeah, and I think it's why that has to become like a complete no. But I feel like it's so normalized in our organization, in our sector, of like, they've been signed, you know, we know how many people we could count, like people, like so many people who we know have had breakdowns, who have like, you know, in the worst case scenario, I know quite a few people who've been sectioned, like, do you know what I mean? Because of all the stress of, it's like, this is serious stuff. Like, this is, like, for me over COVID, one of the things that I've realized is like, I'm young. Do you know what I mean? Like, everyone keeps saying, like, because the arts makes you think like, if you're 25, then you're like, you know, you're not a young person anymore. So that means that you're like old. And I'm like, I want to be living a long time. And I think we're underestimating the impact that having serious stressful episodes or breakdowns, whatever it might be, has on your long-term effects. And I think, you know, someone posted a meme thing the other day, and like I tweeted it, and it was just basically like, you're literally replaceable at work, but you're not replaceable at home. So do you know what I mean? And I know it, and I said I know it's like nuanced, but also it is. It's like nobody else can be the sister, daughter, partner that I can be, but actually someone else could do the facilitation work. You know, they could actually deliver the work. It might be exactly like how I do it, but it's possible. So I think there's a lot of martyrdom that goes on in the arts, isn't there? It's like, I've done a 12-hour day and I've like stressed out myself and I've like, you know, not seen my family for weeks. It's like I don't understand where it comes from, because it's a bit weird, because we're not medics. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, exactly. Like, I was watching this thing, I'm totally going off subject. I was watching this thing about Alexander McQueen the other night, and it was like totally like that, like fashion is the same. And I was just like, but it's clothes. It's the same. It's an art, but like literally, like people are dying. They're killing themselves because they are so. The pressure is so bad, and I'm really proud of myself, but I feel really sad that it's taken literally. I've been working in the arts for like 13 years, and it's taken me that long to be like, no, like that's not. And I'm a cis white woman. Do you know what I mean? So it's like I've got my own issues, like, but you know, that's probably hindered that. But anyway, we've totally like, I knew this
please make sure that we say the things that we need to say before.
I know. I'm like, I knew it was going to happen. I was like, me and Suriya are just going to be like, well, I'm going to go for a wee actually, and then I'll come back and let's get digital. So I'm just going to stop my camera so I know on the editing when I stopped talking. No, stop my video. I'm not going to stop recording. And I'm going to go for a wee and I'll be back. Oh, hi.
Hello.
So, okay. So, in terms of, this is a bit of possibly a bit of a weird question, but what do you think digital has offered or brought specifically to a neurodivergent community in terms of the positives? So looking at the sort of opportunities and then the challenges.
Yeah, I think what are the biggest things, the challenges that I think maybe a lot of neurodivergent people face or struggle with in the arts is potentially the idea that you have to have your body in the space to be seen. So performance, for example, has expanded a lot, the idea of performance, because digital performance has now been seen as an acceptable form of performance. So before, I think if someone showed a video link, not necessarily of them, but of a digital piece of art that they've created, I don't know if people would have seen it as performance before. I'm thinking about something that I saw at BOM actually, and it was like, I've got, my memory is not great, so I'm trying to remember when it was. It was like a Black woman, and it was like a game kind of thing.
Yeah, it was, and she's going through the airport, was it?
Yeah, I'm just getting little images of it, and it was projected on the wall. And
oh yeah, maybe that was Tabitha is there, and it was like, it looked sort of, it was like 90s sort of.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know what you mean. It was Tabitha.
So things like that, it's like, I think I saw that as performance, and I don't know how they would have classified it, but I think it made me expand my idea of what performance is and can be. And I think for neurodivergent people, where our lives fluctuate so much in terms of energy or triggers or whatever it might be, I think the idea of creating something that could be present when you're not is actually really empowering, because it's like, I sometimes I don't know where my body's going to be. I don't know what's going to happen in my life. I don't know what, you know, I might have, for example, someone who might have significant anxiety might be able to manage their anxiety all month, and then the day of the performance, it's just the worst it's ever been. And that can feel like I'm a failure. How am I going to do it? But digital allows you to play with it in a way that means that wouldn't stop you from being seen or stop your work from being seen.
That's amazing. That's like, I've not thought about that, like your visibility of you.
Yeah.
And that if you're not always having like an online example of yourself, like at your best, is really important. And
also just like online is definitely a place to be, but also like within places like BOM, in like art gallery or installation spaces, to feel that your work or yourself could exist there in like a launch of an exhibition or something, but you're not there. Do you know what I mean? I think that's, go on.
It's really powerful, isn't it? And I think that actually COVID has really helped that, because even the expectations within the world of like new media, digital art, you know, we see that like someone literally just transferring me a video that they've made. We see that as just as valuable as something physically in the space, and actually easier. It's so much easier because you're not waiting on like DPD to turn up with something, and it's like terrifying and you don't know if it's going to get there on time and stuff. But it's also what was I going to say? I've totally forgotten what I was going to say now. Oh God, I've totally forgotten. That's really bad, isn't it? I'm going to have to edit this bit out.
No, it's fine. Forgetting is part of neurodivergent life. Do you know what I mean? Like, I forget all the time.
You were saying that to be able to have, I was saying about COVID. So it's so much more like now I just feel like the opportunities have gone mad. Like before COVID, if I'd gone to Karen, our director, and been like, right, I want to do a completely virtual event, she would have been like there needs to be some physical, and the pressures of that physicality of being in space for everybody, audiences, for practitioners, is massive. And also we don't have the budgets to be able to fly people over. We can't afford to have people even getting trains from London, is a stretch sometimes. So like we're doing this event in November online, and someone was like, can I record it beforehand? I don't even want to do it live. And I was like, oh yeah, like, you know. And then they were like, well, we can work out how, because you can't get live questions from people, like, but we were like, well, we can work around that. And it just feels like people are so much more open to what is acceptable and what we can access. And I think it's meant that a lot of programs going online has meant much more access for people neurodivergent or neurotypical. Like,
definitely. For me, I've done more performances in the COVID than I did before. Because I've been able to. It's also the time. It's also all the like frilly stuff that goes on around all the kind of social expectations that you have around the arts as well, which can be really exhausting for me. So, for example, I performed at Manchester Pride, and it was in person, but it was live streamed. But we turned up like half an hour before the performance. I went on stage, I read my piece, and then we went home. Do you know what I mean? Whereas usually for a whole thing, it's like you could be there, you've got to like, do all the like speak to people and and if you don't, you're seen as this and you're seen as that, and like, and then you've got to stay after, and if you don't, you're seen as weird. And like a lot of things that I find really difficult in the arts is that things end so late, and actually that's really difficult for people with health conditions. Like they end at like 11:30 p.m. or something like that, and then you're like gotta get home, and then it's like, oh, your whole sleep is disturbed, and it's actually really exhausting. So I think, even like you said, people's mind opening up to not questioning what is the norm anymore, and being like, oh, that person's left early, that's fine, or that person stayed, you know what I mean, that's fine, or it's not an expectation that you must do this and do that. Like some people are just going to turn up and do their thing and then go home, or they're not, or they are going to pre-record it, because pre-recording as well for that was an option, because it's like, and it wasn't seen as any less than the people who were there, it was just a different flavor of it. So I think that's really powerful, and it allows you to, if you're say for example, we did a piece for MIF as the House of Noir, and it's like we were able to put that together over like a month. Do you know what I mean? So it wasn't just this whole high intensity, go, all the costumes, performing, la 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 la. And obviously performing live is great as well. Like it has its like massive perks. But I think the flexibility, I think now what I'm excited about is the fact that people are not going to pit one against each other. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, I think I remember doing an event a year ago or maybe longer, and it was like a digital event, and it was in the arts, and there were so many theatres and stuff there, and we were talking about digital, and they were so pissed off about digital. This is like way before COVID, so they were like, digital's going to kill performance, digital is going to kill the theatres, and I was like, well, it won't. But also you need to move with the times, because in 30 years time is a space, like a physical space, going to be funded? I literally don't know what's going to happen. Yeah. I imagine like the high street shops is going down, you know, it's over.
Yeah, basically. It's true.
And so that is, I think it will definitely happen, and I'm not happy about it, and I know there's a massive problem within terms of the economy and jobs and stuff, and I love live performance, but I also love the fact that I can like be cooking my noodles, and I'm like, for a well-being and like life balance thing, I'm in more control of what I get involved in, and I'm really interested. That's one of the things I'm really interested in within my role at BOM is the future of exhibition, and particularly exhibition, so not necessarily performance. We don't do a whole lot of performance at BOM, like live performance anyway, and but the idea of like physical versus virtual in terms of exhibiting art has been like really interesting over COVID.
And I think also what it is that the people are experimenting with higher quality digital as well, because I think that's probably potentially put some people off before, because it's like, if I want to see the exhibition, if I want to see a walkthrough of the exhibition online, sometimes the pictures might be fuzzy, or I can't like actually get zoomed into high quality of the actual piece in the way that I might if I'm in person. Or do you understand what I mean? Or maybe there's not any atmosphere that's created that gives me a sense of I'm feeling like like I'm there. But I think what's exciting that I've seen over COVID that's popped up a little bit more is let me see if I can find it for you, because it was quite good. It was
I'm really interested in, I've been asking people to send me like links of like online exhibitions and stuff, because I feel a bit weird about, you know, when people do like 360 videos or like virtual versions of the physical space. To me, that as a curator, it doesn't feel right.
Yeah,
it doesn't. I don't like it, and I don't know, and I'm trying to get to the bottom, and I know a lot of other people are thinking like that, and I think it's really interesting. I'd rather create a completely different virtual
kind of thing. And I think I'm trying to find it for you. If I can find it, let me see if I can, because what it is that there was this art, I think it was an artist or a band that created like a launch of their brand, and did it via like, you walked into this room, it was online, and then you went to the coffee table, and then you clicked on like a little book, and then the book took you somewhere else, and then so it was almost like a game, like you were going through like this little experience, which felt a lot, you know, it felt a little bit more dynamic than just kind of like someone's open, you know, someone's like walked you through and then you're turning. It's not enjoyable. So that's what I meant. I think also that's what I mean about, I can't find it right now, but I'll find it for you later. That's what I meant about like quality or innovation around online. It shouldn't be that, oh, if you need to access it online, you're going to have a lower quality experience. It should still be like you're having a different type of experience, to the point that people who maybe would go in person might consider it as an equal alternative. So it's like, I could go to online, or I could do this, you know what I mean? So it's not just like online or digital is seen as for those who can't get to the real thing. Do you know what I mean?
Like what you were saying earlier about like ableism and stuff, and like this hot sort of old-fashioned, not old-fashioned, but just the way we do things, like that isn't true anymore. Like, we need to move with the times. Like, you know, like you were talking about, young people are accessing culture, everything through loads of different things like TikTok and stuff. And like, people will sneer at that sort of thing, but that is what is happening. Like, you have to deal with that, you know what I mean? If you want to work with those people and you want those people to engage with you, you just have to move with it. Like, theatre's been in existence for like how many years? Like thousands of years, basically.
Yeah.
And it is still absolutely relevant. It is an amazing art form, but we need to sort of change the way that we think about it. And I think there's a lot of people who struggle with that, in terms of producers and directors and curators, and that is frustrating. I find that frustrating, but I'm really lucky that I work in an organisation that's pretty, you know, changing all the time and excited about new things. So it's easy for me to be like, hey, just like start doing things on TikTok, because I know it's not as easy for
Well, yeah. Have you seen Black Country Museum's TikTok?
You know what? So we've got. Do you know Justine Luaba? Yeah, you do, don't you? Do you?
I don't know. I don't.
So she's come from Beatfit. She started using our TikTok, and she was on our Zoom this morning, and she was talking about Black Country Museum, and she was like, "It's amazing.
It's really good," and I think it's so like, it's so clever. Do you know what I mean? Because it's just like, there's so many young people now who are like, I'm trying to see if I can find it. Like, I just feel like their interactions are also really good. And like, it's just like young people who would never ever have gone to the Country Museum, and now considering it, like, they've got 49,000 followers. Like, it's actually pretty, like, I feel like, they've got like 156,000 views on some of their videos.
You know what? That is amazing. We've got like just over 4,000 followers, and but I don't know if you saw, we've got we did this video that was a little walking protein, and it was just a random thing, and we've started this hashtag like cute science, because it is the cutest thing in the world. I loved it, and I was like, oh my god, I have to get this up. But it's had let me find how it's had 731.4 thousand views, and how many we've had, like, oh god, I can't even get on it now. My phone's just like freaking out. It's had 39,000 likes. And
is it that interior crocodile alligator one?
Yeah. You knew the song. And it's a little, like a real, it's like an animation of a protein that we all have in our brains, and he's just like going along like this, like walking. Anyway, I'm going off piece again.
No, it's not off piece though, because this is, you know, digital is kind of a bit of an elusive word nowadays, isn't it? Because it's like, you said it's so vast. It's like, it is TikTok, it's social media, but I think it's also that thing of I think we still categorize social media in our mind as like this thing that's like kind of personal, bit public. But now social media, especially in COVID, has become such a big part of our work connections, our life connections, everything, hasn't it? So why wouldn't we consider how that might be used for neurodivergent people? Because people feel safer in different spaces, don't they? So for example, for us, it's like for example, if I'm working with Colours, the LGBT youth organization, it's like Instagram really is the best place. When we tried to do like an online Zoom session talking about mental health, you know, we didn't get that many people, young people, come into it. But when we did it Instagram live and people could send in questions anonymously, or they could chat in the Instagram live, we had a lot of people who were, you know, coming through. So it's like, and I think even in our mind, we underestimated that. We were like, oh, that's like the side thing. But actually that's actually the main place that young people feel it's not this big old thing. Then it's like how they normally would, you know, they're talking about, especially on TikTok, you see so many young people are talking about so many deep things, about consent, about mental health, about their sexuality, about their experiences at uni. Like, it's not just this thing for a lot of young people, which is like this fun thing. It's actually a place where they're also exploring their identity. So
we should be in those spaces. We need to be, because then it normalizes it, and it makes what we're trying to do as a cultural organisations a part of the norm for them. It shouldn't be this separate big thing over here. Like if we can just get into their everyday lives, then that's the dream, isn't it? Because you embed it into their psyche and their daily experience, which I think that's what people are sometimes scared of, is that they're like, but then it won't become such an event anymore, like going to the theatre or going to see an art exhibition. And that is special, but especially at this time when people can't go out, they can't get out necessarily. So we have to move what we're doing. And I think also people have often said to me like, yeah, but I don't get it. I don't get TikTok. I'm like, listen, babes, I don't get TikTok really, but that's okay. Just get someone in who does. Like, it's not that hard. Just
and for me,
someone
it's like, I don't have a profile. I don't create anything. I just literally watch TikToks, and I watch TikToks for my own enjoyment because I find them really funny. But also, it is making me aware of like, you know, like there was young people, like I was showing Chloe the other day because obviously she's a youth worker as well. And young people, like young women, are there like making videos about like vaginal discharge. Like they're talking about things of like, this isn't what kind of discharge it is. And it's just like, you know, imagine if we did like an exhibition about vaginas or something like that. And then we're like, oh, we've got to be, it's like, no, actually young people have been like talking about this and this got like thousands and thousands of likes with other young people going, oh my God, I didn't realize that. Or thank you for talking about this. Honestly, this Gen Z, like generation, I'm just like, they're so inspiring, like, because they don't have that, like, they're removing shame from so many things. But TikTok is the way that they're talking about these things. And they're like, you know, I would never have thought if somebody said, you know, a lot of people who are not on TikTok are just like, oh, that silly young people thing. But it's like, actually, they're on there talking, discussing their bodies, discussing science, discussing things or whatever it might be, demystifying ideologies about things for each other. And I think it's important that we know that, you know, and not to be like, I have to like know my position because I know that I'm an older young person now, whatever. So I'm not going to be like trying to be down with the kids. But I think it's important that we know how people are consuming information. It's like when I think there's a lot of people that have talked about how do you engage young people in art. It's like young people are consuming art all the time on Instagram, but they're like, oh no, that's not really. It's like, yeah, it is. That's literally their art gallery. That's how they go to the. My friend did a piece of research for I think it was transforming narratives about like how young Asian people, like I think it was Pakistani and Bangladeshi young people, go to the art gallery, and a lot of them said, why would I go to the art gallery when I can see the art on my phone? They said, why would I go? I can see it on Instagram. And then we go, like as older people, it's like, oh, it's not the same. It's like, yeah, but that's their version of, they've grown up in the digital age. Why would they? And it is like, we have to answer those questions for them of being like, okay, so why would they? Let's actually be real about why would someone come to a place. And especially in Birmingham, like a lot of the time, I've always said like the travel is so abysmal that it is literally like, why would I leave like, I've got to get 3 buses to get to that place. So it's like, actually.
And really, like as a city, we're a small centre and a massive area, aren't we? So people are generally like living actually quite far away. So going to the city centre, it's horrible, like a lot of the time. Like, you know, it's not always that nice, is it? So it's, I mean, because we don't really do at BOM, we don't do like a lot of physical outreach like in neighbourhoods or anything, because we do it online essentially, and we want to get better at doing that. But I think that's one of the things as well I was thinking about, as in, if you can, is this thing about the challenge of traveling is massive. So whether it's going to work or it's going to an interview or going to consume culture, before you've even got there, like you're done, you know, it's like you've had enough, you just want to get back. Like I've had that a couple of times where people have like supposed to be coming to stuff and they've literally got fairly near and they've had such a bad experience and they've just got in an Uber and gone home because the train was so stressful. So I think things like Zoom interviews and all that sort of thing is a really, really good thing. What was I gonna, do you think in terms of like the admin and like processes, do you apply for different freelance positions, or like, can you, I don't know if you can, but if you can you talk about the barriers of physically like getting into an organization as in to be employed?
Oh, to be employed. I mean, yeah, I think the biggest help, I can talk about my best experiences of applying for things have been when I can do video application, or I can do an audio application, or I have a person who I can chat to in the organization who, me asking them questions about the application is not going to influence, is really not going to influence my whether, how they judge me on how good I am for the role or whatever. So for example, this is not a freelance position, but it was an award that I was applying for the other day, and there was someone assigned within the organization who was kind of the, if you need any support about the applying things, get into, you can chat to me. But what they did as well is, I know that people normally have that on their applications, sometimes you can call this person, but I think what made a difference with that is that they got in touch with me first. So say for example, you had like 10 applications, and then, you know, say it was you're the middle, you know, you're the access person, might be, you might get in touch with all those people and be like, hey, I'm just like I'm kind of the access assistant for this application process, so I just wanted to check there's anything that you needed questions or help with in terms of applying. Because I think what makes a difference there is that I think people really have fear that it's going to be used against them, like asking for being like, oh, if I have to ask for help on how to upload a document, are they going to think I'm not going to be able to do the job? Because I think people do think that. It's honest, like, if you can't even do that, then how's it going to do? But it's like there's lots of different things that people need clarification on. So I think that I've had that twice with people. With Contact in Manchester, they did that, and another organization.
How did you make yourself known that you were going to apply and you might need?
I think that was after I'd already applied. So no, it wasn't. It was, how did that happen? I think so that was after I'd applied. So say for example, no, it was, I think how did it work? How would it work? So you could, so if you weren't doing it after people had done an expression of interest or anything like that, which I think is what happened with one of the ones, I did expression of interest and someone got in touch, you could do like a little video or something on the application page that made it a little bit more personable. So for example, you could be like, hey everyone, you know, just want to let you know that I've kind of been assigned as the access person. So if you've got any questions or things that you want to help with the application process, then just like give me a call on this number or whatever it might be. Because then I think that makes it more, I think when we had a kind of refresher with the cohort of the award that I was in, and a lot of people said having a face to the name of the person who they knew that they were chatting to made a massive difference, because it was like, not this alien person who might be judging me from an office. It's like, oh, it's generally like Louise, and she's just going to say, you know, whatever. And I think what's important from an organization's perspective is that when you do recruitment, that you actually assign hours to your roles for that process. Because that's what happens, isn't it? It's like, oh, Louise will just fit it into her work, and actually you don't have any time for it. So you have to kind of say to the managers or anything to be like, I think we should give like a day and a half for me, or like, you know, or this amount of hours for me over the, say it's 12 hours over these 2 weeks, just in case anyone got in touch and needed to chat to me about the application process, because that's the barriers inside the organization, isn't it, that happen.
Yeah, exactly. So you don't want to do it like whenever there's people get in contact, they're like, hey, can I talk to you about the job? I'm like, no. But I say no because I think that they're trying, that I don't, like, most of the time they're not doing it because they don't understand, or they want clarification. They're like, they want to be like, so, you know, they're trying to like get in and be like, they want to know more, they want to know exactly what we're looking for in terms of not in an access way, in a getting a step up way. So probably not, don't have any sort of neurodivergence or needs or anything. They just want to like get in with me, so that when we get the application, I'll be like, oh yeah, I remember that person. They were like, you know what I mean? That's what I always think is going to happen.
Yeah. I mean, sometimes there's no way to know whether they are doing that or not, because not every person who's asking for access needs is going to appear the same. Do you know what I mean? Some people might be really nervous and other people might be quite confident and they just sound like they're asking. But I think if you frame it as like that you're an access assistant, or you're, you say specifically that your role is for disabled and neurodivergent people who might need extra support, I think that frames it. And I think you just then, I think it's also about managing in terms of your time. It's like maybe having a Calendly or something like that, where it's like you can book in a 15-minute slot with someone to talk about, you know what I mean? Or you can, so it doesn't become this like, where you feel, I think it just has to be built into the time access stuff. Do you know what I mean? Because I think what people do is be like, it's not like a favor or a help. It's genuinely like, if you want to make it accessible. But I think one of the biggest things is if you can do audio or video application, that normally reduces it quite significantly. Or you maybe make suggestions of ways of accessible tools that they can use. So for example, some people might not want to do video and audio, but they might not know that Google Drive has a dictate thing. So it's just like, you can do audio and video, or you might find it useful to use the dictate thing on Google and then submit it into this form. Do you know what I mean? Like, I think it's like not penalizing people for the idea that they might, because I think when you give people permission, especially neurodivergent people, they'll go, oh, phew, yeah, okay, cool, I can do it. Whereas sometimes for me, I overthink and think, oh my God, I've got to do this. And someone reminds me, you can use the dictate thing. It's like, oh yeah, I can use the dictate thing. For me now, it's different because I've got an access assistant that works with me. But that's normally what happens, is that I have to ask my partner to, before I had the access assistant, I had to ask my partner to help me write something, because it's normally the anxiety about how you're going to be judged, not necessarily that I can't write, because I can, because I write things all the time. But when it comes through, when you think about your neurodivergence and applying, it's like, oh my God, oh my God, oh my God, oh my God, and I can't get over that thing. And actually, a lot of the time, it is so much easier for me to do an audio thing because it just takes less energy. But I know sometimes can articulate myself better.
Okay, well, that's really good advice. Like, that idea of having an access person, I think, is really important. And I think that I didn't even know that Google did a dictate thing. So that's like, we'll definitely look into that. We should probably finish up soon. But just one last question: are there any other bits of advice that you've got in terms of using digital? Well, maybe let me just think about what I'm asking here. Can I just ask, this is probably a bit of a big one, so maybe I shouldn't be asking it right at the end, but some of the, most of the neurodivergent practitioners that we work with have a real fear. Well, I'm not going to speak for them in terms of what it is, but there's a difficulty, there's a lot of anxiety around their identity online and sharing who they are and like what their practice is. And so we find that
in terms of them being neurodiverse, or just in general?
Just in general. So not really necessarily, but I think it's their neurodivergence that is hindering them being able to share their identity. But it's not that they need to share their neurodivergent identity, if you know what I mean. It's their practice, it's their personality as a creative practitioner. We often have a lot of deleting of accounts and then new accounts and different names, and like, because from the look on your face, it's probably a bit of a two. Like, it's.
No, I'm trying. Yeah, I'm just trying to understand. This is my trying to understand.
Yeah, but it's hard because I'm speaking for other people, which is probably not really fair. But there's a lot of fear of how they're going to be perceived. I think is the end result of what there's this balance of like people saying that you really need a really good online presence, so Twitter, Instagram, website. But there's a real anxiety around it. Like, I suppose it's the same as what you were just saying about writing your applications, like the fear of being judged, like how you're going to be judged or interpreted.
Yeah, I'm wondering if this is an artist thing and not just a neurodiversity. I think it might. I think neurodiversity probably will come into it, definitely. I went to a really good workshop by Travis Alabanza about this, and they were talking about as an art having your online presence as an artist. I feel like it was with some sort of organization via in Liverpool, actually.
What are they called? Trans Alabanza?
Travis Alabanza.
Oh,
they are trans, but yeah, their name's not trans. Alabanza. Typed it in the chat. So yeah, they did a workshop about your artist presence online, and it was really good, I found, because they talked about anxiety, and they talked about they talked about all the things that might stop you from kind of putting yourself out there, and what platform you might use for certain things, or what you do on certain platforms. So for example, for them, it was like, I used to be a very reactive person on Twitter where I just tweeted everything out. Now I kind of use it a bit more purposefully. I see my Instagram as a curation of I see it as like say for example, I write a piece of poetry. I also think about how that poetry can translate onto Instagram as a form of art, as an art piece. So it's not just, and then they have a personal Instagram, but they just talked about lots of things which didn't negate the idea of anxiety online, and also finding your place and how you want to use online for yourself, because you don't have to do it like everyone else. You do probably have to have a presence, but do you want to do a website instead of an Instagram? I mean, not everybody has to have an Instagram, not everybody has to have a Twitter.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of pressure on social media, and sometimes if I'm looking for an art of some, if I'm researching, as long as someone's got a website, I'm not asked really about
this is it. And sometimes like, I know I don't have a website right now because because I was basically just trying to it wasn't fit for purpose currently, because I made it out of like, oh shit, I need a website. It wasn't like really thought about it and what I wanted it for. And I'd had that anxiety in the same way people have anxiety about Instagram. I had that anxiety about a website. But now it's like, I've talked to a lot of different people about it and being able to focus on what I want my website to do for me. Because I think a lot of us look at what other people are doing and then just copy and paste theirs, and actually it might not be fit for us, or then it puts more pressure on us. So for someone to have an Instagram that's just like, don't really use this page, go to my website, you know what I mean? Like, that could be fine for them. So I would say, like, I don't know what their fee is for that website, but I would really it really helped me, that workshop. So
I'll have a look and see if it's online. There's a lot of, I think it's really important to get other people to look at things as well as like outside, because with a lot of artists, they send me their website and I'm like, this is the worst thing I've ever seen in my life. Like, it's just completely inaccessible. Like, I have no clue what's going on, especially new media artists. It's like, what? And then there's other people who put like literally their life story on there and every single thing they've ever done, and I'm like, ooh. So there's a good way, like, editing is really important, I think, and like that goes for everything, doesn't it? Like your CV as well. I think there's like, they don't know, and this is everyone, I think, like you're saying about artists, they don't know what is important and what isn't, and that is hard.
For me, I'm just like, when I spoke to my friend who's a website developer, he just said, your website, why do people go to people's websites? They want to see what you do, and they want to know how to get in touch with you, and they want a few examples of what you've done before. Do you know what I mean? That's it. So don't overcomplicate it. You don't have to put everything ever that you've ever done on there. So for me, because that was what was stressing me, I was like, where am I going to find all my stuff? And I was like, just going to put the current projects that I'm working on. Because actually, I don't really want people to get in touch with me about what I did 5 years ago, because that's not what I'm doing right now. So, and also I'm just going to have like 3 pages. That's it. Because also I don't want a website that I've got to update every week, because that's going to stress me out. So, but that took me a process of chatting to numerous people and figuring out the fact that also, because I have my own fears about talking about myself, I'm going to have to get someone else to do it, because I'm like, I need a bit of distance from it. Otherwise this is never going to get done, and it needs to get done, kind of thing. So I feel like maybe an artist talk, whether it's Travis, whether it's another artist, to talking about how they might do their stuff might really help in that. And maybe if it's a neurodiverse person as well, It could.
Yeah, and I think it is like exactly what you're saying. As someone who is always looking for practitioners to work with, that website that you just described sounds amazing. Like, bit of what I've done, how to contact, and then because I would just get in contact straight away and be like, hey, I'm doing this, is it something you're interested in? And then you have a conversation, don't you? So I think that is really important. But okay, brilliant. Well, thank you so much.
You're welcome.